So, Courtney, just tell us a wee bit about yourself, where you live, what family you have.
Yeah, so I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's not a state that people come to. So if you don't have family here and you live not in America, you probably would never come here. Although a lot of people, it's a really pretty state, so it's kind of like a hidden gem. It's one of those places that even if you live in the on the coasts in America, you don't really come here very often, but we feel like it's a hidden gem. Um, it's in the south, in the southern part of the country. Um, so I have lived here for 12 years. I grew up in the Dallas area, in Dallas, Texas, and have lived kind of all over. But I've been married to Daniel, my husband, for almost 15 years. And we have four boys. We have twins who are 10. We have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. They're all in elementary school. And yeah, so I have been in some form of ministry for all of my adult life. I went to seminary at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And so yeah, so I've written a few books, and writing was kind of always what I wanted to do, but I really love teaching the Bible in my local church too.
Tell us how you came to know the Lord.
Yeah, so I became a Christian in college. So I grew up in a Christian home. My dad kind of was in and out of ministry, and he went into vocational ministry as a pastor when I was in college. But I grew up knowing the gospel, but really just liked the world more than I liked being a Christian. So but in college, the Lord really used a lot of things in my life to help me to see the reality of my sinfulness and my need for a savior, and really led me to the end of myself where I could not I couldn't make I was always a hard worker and did well in like jobs and made enough money to make ends meet. And so the Lord really kind of made all those comfort things go away, so that I really saw, like, I can't work my way into an easy life. And so I was confronted with my sin, and I became a Christian right before I turned 21. I feel like in a lot of ways people have these like moments where they're like, I knew I was a Christian, a sinner, I needed a savior, and then there's this massive transformation. And I do think there was a transformation in the sense that I knew I needed a savior, and I wasn't I needed to confess and walk in holiness. But I feel like I had a lot of fits and starts where I would like walk in obedience and then fall back into sin, and walk in obedience and fall back into sin. But what was so striking to me is how the Lord drew me to himself and then kept me even in spite of my own sinfulness and my own inability to save myself. And so through that, I lived at home for a little while in college because I had gotten mono and gotten really sick. So I lived at home, and through that, of just being at home and reading my Bible and seeing my own need for a savior, I just think I think it's a testimony of the Lord's keeping power, and that he keeps those who are his. And so and then I finished college at a Christian college. I kind of wanted to surround myself with believers for a while to grow in my walk with the Lord. And then always felt called to writing. Even before I was a Christian, writing was just something I loved doing. And so the Lord redeemed that in my life. And then I finished school and did writing, and felt like the Lord was calling me to ministry. And so I went to seminary from there.
So you went to Southern Seminary, kind of thinking about women's ministry or more writing. What was on your mind with, or what way
Yeah,
was the Lord leading?
I think when I look back, I was like, I want to teach the Bible to women, and I want to write. And I think that's kind of all I wanted to do. And I didn't really, at that time, I mean, this is like 17 or 18 years ago. I mean, it's changed a lot even in the last 15, 20 years of what women do in the church. And so I was like, I want to teach the Bible, and I want to write, but I didn't really have a lot of categories for that. And I didn't know what was available. So, and I liked studying, and I was single. So I was like, well, I want to do that. And I had been asked to be on the women's ministry team at my church. And at the time thought, well, I'm so young, maybe I'll go to seminary and grow. And then I thought I would go back to that church. And, and so, yeah, I think women's ministry, originally that was what I was studying in school. And then I realized, well, if I just study theology, then I can just grow in all of theology and be a good theologian in the church. So I don't think I had like a real I knew I wanted to write. I mean, I think if anyone had asked me, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I want to write, and I want to teach the Bible to women. but I don't know what that looks like. But I think still, like all these years later, that's really kind of all I want to do. I don't really have a game plan beyond that. So
Well, that's a good enough ambition, I think, to have
yeah,
anyway. Yeah,
yeah,
that's good. Courtney, I know that you've been through some difficult circumstances. I'm thinking, I mean, you faced cancer in the midst of a pandemic. And
yeah.
I just wondered if some of your writing maybe has come out of those circumstances that you've had in your own life.
Oh yeah, for sure. So one of there was I heard I think one of my professors in seminary said, some people write out of knowledge of what they know, and some people write to learn. And I think for me, I write to learn, but I also write to process. There's a quote by I don't even know who the author is or the person is, but they say we write to taste life twice. And I think for me, I write to get to process whatever I'm experiencing. So I'm not an external processor in the sense of like my husband. It's funny, I'm not a verbal processor, even though I like to talk a lot. But I am a processor through words, and so I feel like I can't make sense of things until I write about it. So a lot of my writing is born out of whatever the Lord is having me walk through at that time. Now, I don't always publish all of it, but the Lord has really, I think in any teacher, to be an effective teacher, whether it's through writing or speaking or anything, you have to have had whatever you're teaching be worked into you first, or I don't think you're able to truly pass that on to someone else. And so the Lord has used suffering and the things that we've walked through to work things into my heart that then I'm able to pass on to others. And I mean, and I think it's 2 Corinthians 4, where it talks about how that the suffering we walk through is so that we can strengthen other people, essentially. And I think that's everything we walk through is for our own benefit, obviously, but also for the benefit of the body.
Yeah. Yeah. Courtney, last question. Can I ask you, which do you prefer then, writing or speaking?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I do think it's so hard. So I feel like I was a writer before I was a speaker, like a teacher. And so I do think my first love is writing, but I have grown to love teaching the Bible. And I think part of the reason why it's like asking to pick your favorite kid, but I think that like I love them both because I'm an extrovert. And so for me, the teaching experience allows me to engage with real people, and so I can see their faces and their eyes and I can talk to them. And so writing I love, but if all I did was writing, because I'm such an extrovert, it would be really hard for me. I kind of get grumpy if I write all the time. Like I've gone on writing retreats to try to finish book projects before, and I don't come home energized. I come home kind of drained and sad and grumpy, which you think I would come home happy because I finished something. But if I go speak somewhere, I usually come home energized. And I think it's because of what fills me up, my disposition. I don't come home drained from those things. And I think it's because I'm an extrovert. And so I draw a lot of energy from flesh and blood people. So yeah.
Courtney, we're delighted that you're speaking to us this evening.